Welcome to One Sharp Sword, cutting through to what matters most. I'm your host, Dr. P, Dr. Wayne Pernell, the exponential success coach. And with me today, I have an amazing woman that I met over dinner, learned a bunch about her. She's not only an artist, but she helps entrepreneurs. She's amazing. We met at a dinner that was curated by a mutual friend, and I just felt like she needed to join us. So I'm going to let her dive into the background that brought her to doing what she's doing. Without further rambling, let me introduce Miriam Schulman. Welcome. Thank you for being here.
Well, thanks so much for having me, Wayne. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's all right. So before we had some technical difficulties, and as we've sorted those out, we were talking about what happened at that curated dinner.
That's right. So I basically told a very funny joke. I'm not sure if I'm going to get the timing right again.
You will.
But okay, I will. So at that dinner, we had to share a fun fact. And Wayne's fun fact was that, and I don't know if you talked about this on the podcast. I'm assuming you haven't, since it was supposed to be a fact that nobody else knows about you, which is that you cut your wife in half. So I want to know what's it with you with swords and cutting, and is this a lifelong obsession for you? Like, is that?
No, it's not. It's not a lifelong. No, yes.
Awesome.
And for those listening, I just held up a tanto, which is a Japanese knife. So one sharp sword. First of all, I cut my wife in thirds, not half. That's a technical difference.
Oh, that's harder.
See? Yeah. So my background, some people that have been listening to me for a while will remember that I have magic in my background. So, my wife and I were practicing magicians for a while. We'd have our JOB type of jobs go off, come back Fridays and Saturdays. We'd go to a local club and do our thing, magic. And then the other thing is I grew up as a martial artist. And so the logo of the show, the title of the show, the logo is a katana being offered up out of the waves. The drawing is actually the drawing of my sword that I own. So it is a katana. The idea of cutting through to what matters most is about one sharp sword can cut through, and one sharp sword is so much better than 1,000 dull knives. And so that's what brings us here, is to talk about what does matter most. What makes the difference in our lives as humans? We have so much going on. We're each so busy. We're so distracted. And so one of the reasons I wanted you here, Miriam, is because you actually have a way of grounding all the distraction that's going around all about us. And so if you could talk about, I have with me Miriam's book. She will be talking about it. It's called Artpreneur. And I would love for you to talk about your art. Obviously, it's surrounding you. For those that can't see because you're listening, there's beautiful art next to and behind Miriam. And I would love to have you dive into how did
save you?
Like,
how much sleep did you get last night?
About 3.5 hours.
Yeah. I'm so sorry for you.
Thank you. How did you get to be the artpreneur, and what? Okay. Let's go there.
Let's do that. Okay. So no long introduction, just a long preamble to me. So I always wanted to be an artist, but I was told you couldn't make a living that way. And I came from a single parent household. My father passed away when I was 5 years old. So when I went to college with a mountain of student debt, I didn't see being an artist as an option. So I figured, well, if I had to make money, where were they making the most money? So I went to Wall Street, and not just any place on Wall Street. So I actually worked for the same guys in Michael Lewis's book, Liar's Poker, and this very famous hedge fund that exploded in 1998. And after 9/11 happened, I took that as a sign from the universe not to do that anymore, and to, as you would say, cut through all of that and do what matters most to me and find more purpose in my life.
What got you from art into the world of finance?
Well, I've always actually been very good at math. So I did see that as my ticket out of the struggles that I had growing up. So like I said, that single parent household, mountain of student debt. And my mother was a dancer. She did graduate college, but I just saw her struggle because she believed that all she had to do was marry a Jewish doctor. She'd be fine. We didn't plan on him dying of cancer. She didn't plan on it. So I just always wanted to be financially independent. That was definitely, and that still drives me. I still want that financial independence. And that's what drove me as an artist. But people look at me and they think, oh, you must have hated doing that. And to be honest, Wayne, I found the work very interesting. It was intellectually stimulating. I used a lot of creativity as a computer programmer. I liked creating that interface between the traders and the mathematical models that we were using to price derivatives. I know you mentioned you have a lot of bankers in your audience. May be familiar with that. But I found the work interesting. It just, after 9/11 happened, and the reason why 9/11 hit me so hard was because I was at the World Trade Center in 1993 when it was first bombed. And they didn't tell us what was going on. So I had been eating lunch when the bomb went off. We didn't know it was a bomb, and we just knew the power went off. But the elevators were down. So we took the stairs up 37 flights of stairs. And when we got back to our offices and looked out the window, so I was at 7 World Trade and I looked out the window, we could see that there were helicopters circling the buildings. There was smoke coming out of windows, and everybody around me was still working. So when 9/11 happened, and they didn't evacuate that second tower, that could have been me, because that was the culture that you work no matter what. You work even if there's a terrorist attack going on next door. I'd seen it firsthand in 1993. And so it was almost like a PTSD moment when 9/11 happened, that I wasn't at the Trade Center when 9/11 happened, but I could have been. Yeah. And that was just too close to me. So I just made a promise to myself that I was never going back to that culture and to that world again.
Without context, when a bomb goes off, when a plane hits a building, how would you know? Right. And I was in San Francisco on 9/11, and the culture was, well, why would you want to go home? That was New York. It's like, well, it's a thing that's different. It's the culture that, it's like there's a family to go see if they're okay.
Yeah. And in 93, now I'm much older, obviously, if I was working in 93, but I was straight out of school then. And so I hadn't been quite jaded or normalized to this culture yet. So when that happened, when I saw it was a bomb, I just slipped out the back door. Like I went back down those 37 flights of stairs. I was like, I'm not sticking around for this. This is not good. But over time, flights. I walked up 37 flights. I mean,
my first thought was my knees. Oh my God, my knees.
I was in my 20s, so I could do that.
Yeah, that's a workout. It's incredible because that was the culture. It's no longer the culture. And I think the pandemic gave us that gift, because that's a huge shift. And I'm seeing that in businesses over and over. We as leaders need to be paying attention to what the workforce as individual team members, not staff, not employees, as team members. What do they each need? But back then, yeah, it was different, and your butt needed to be in a seat in order to
Yeah.
prove you were proving to someone that you were working. It's a
I
huge
even
shift.
took that lesson further. So once I started to get, after the first year when I was there, and I was like, okay, this FaceTime thing is very important. I would actually go to the 7 a.m. meeting. So they had meetings at 7 a.m. in the morning so that they could hit Tokyo, London, and New York all at the same time. So I was living in New Jersey. So that meant I had to get on a train at 6 o'clock in the morning to make that 7 o'clock meeting. Now, I did that because those were the power players that were in the room who showed up to the meeting. Those were my boss's bosses. And just by showing up and being seen, being visible, that helped me at the end of the year. Now, what's important for people who are in business, this is basically visibility. So it's not, putting yourself and also putting yourself in the right room with the people who are the decision makers. And the other thing I did during that so the first year, my bonus wasn't so great. And I realized that people didn't know what it was that I had done. And so that second year, not only did I put myself in that room every week, but every month I created a memo that basically said, this is what I accomplished this month, and this is how it's helping the business. And I gave that to my boss, and I gave that to my boss's boss. And so the second year, my bonus was way better. But I think the lesson there for everyone is you just can't assume that everyone knows how great you are. You have to toot your own horn. And basically what I was doing was marketing myself to the people who are making those decisions.
That's exactly right. The idea of self-marketing is really important. The trade-off, and this is what I wanted to ask you about. Given the culture, do you need to prove it? And in a business culture, it's very often, yes, you need to market yourself. You need to tell people what it is you're doing and how it's valuable. That was pretty bold. It would be pretty bold today. It was really bold, however many years ago, decades.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. Because the thing is, what I understood was that my boss did not have any incentive to tell anybody what it was that I was doing, because he just needed to make himself look good.
Yes, the team. We, the team. Look what I did as a team leader.
Right. So it didn't.
I made my team.
I didn't get the credit for whatever it was.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I love that you were. I love that you were putting yourself in the room, and it was at a time, especially where women were talking about wanting to be seen. Women were taking more seats at the executive level, but it was super slow. Not like it's fast today. It's not, but it was super slow. And it was during a time where men would pat themselves on the back for saying, look, we have a woman on our board. Look, we have a woman in the C-suite. And for you to step up and go, no, I'm making a contribution. I'm going to be in the room. It's also bold for those that don't know the corporate culture. It's bold to do what's called a skip level, which is where you miss your boss and you go to your boss's boss to say, look at me. So that's super bold.
That's right. And it wasn't just the FaceTime meeting, the memo, but I would regularly go to the trading floor at the end of the day after close and see how they were using my software, if they had anything they wanted me to change. So, but it was exactly what you're talking about. I was not waiting for my boss to come down and tell me what he thought I needed to do. And it did make him look good that I did this. So he didn't discourage me from doing it, but it did take a lot of chutzpah to do that.
Yeah, it does.
And just to paint the picture, in 1993, the trading floor on Salomon Brothers. I mean, this was only like a year or two after the whole John Goodfriend and John Merriweather, like those big, they called them big swinging dicks in the book. It was like walking into a men's locker room. It had that energy to it.
Yeah.
Like you just felt like you're just waiting for someone to snap a towel at you. It really was very thick with male energy.
Yeah. So uh, uh, I'm trying to place myself in your shoes at that point, which is really hard because you're a woman trying to be known. At the same time, there's conflict, which is this worth it? Right? There's got to be in your mind, you've got to be going, I'm getting up at ridiculous o'clock in the morning to get on a train by 6. I'm staying after close, after the bell, in order to be in the right room. What's it all for? Right? At some point,
Yeah.
you have to be asking yourself that.
Well, back then, so remember, I struggled my whole life with money. And that was the first time that I was able to walk into an Ann Taylor and pay full price. And Ann Taylor isn't even, relatively speaking, that expensive. Like we're not talking about Bergdorf Goodman. We're talking like a chain, it's like, but to me, that was like, oh, I arrived. And I was making more than my husband. So I did get married very, very young. So it was something that financial independence was something I had never tasted before. So now money's only going to take you so far. So that's when I ended up leaving my job. So I was invited by that same group of people to join a very exclusive hedge fund. I'm saying that wrong. It sounds like they reached out to me. I made my own opportunity. I reached out to them because they actually weren't allowed to poach us. So I reached out to them and I was invited to, join them. And when they went under in 1998, so this was long-term capital, LTCM, when they went under in 98, I was asked to stay on. And I was asked to stay on because they saw me as somebody who was going to be valuable for the future of the company, but they didn't really have a role for me. And it was during that time when I was part of that skeleton crew and going in every day and collecting a paycheck, but not working. That's when my days lacked meaning and it started to suck my soul. So that's like what I was saying earlier. When I was working and in the busyness of like involved of what I was doing and enjoying the intellectual challenges of it, I was fine. It's when I was just going in and pretending to work and collecting a paycheck that I couldn't do that anymore. That's why money is not a good motivator, because I was still getting the money, but I wasn't getting anything else out of it. And by then I had kids and I felt like I was just being paid to stay away from them. I couldn't continue that path anymore.
That's a huge frame, right? Being paid to stay away from your kids.
You are bigger than the life you are leading. It really is time to attend to that thing you've wanted to do or have, but you've been putting off. It's time to step into that dream you've parked for someday. It's time to claim true well-being, both personally and professionally, without giving up the success that got you here. It's time to check out Dr. Pernell's signature small group retreat, the Exponential Success Summit. Explore exponentialsuccesssummit.com. Seats are extremely limited as this is a very special small group event. www.exponentialsuccesssummit.com.
It's interesting. Pre-pandemic, the Gallup organization listed pay as number 5 on the list of motivators for employees. As the pandemic rolled on and we redefined what mattered to us, we all got a sense of what our true values are. And it's interesting. Number 1 is meaningful work. Tell me that what I am doing makes a difference. Like, I have to see that it makes a difference to somebody, anybody, somebody. Number 2 is catch me doing it. Acknowledge that I'm actually doing it. And so for employers, those are huge key takeaways that you need to pay attention to. And they're not new. They've been around forever. We want to know that what we do matters. It's, and Miriam, that's part of why you left, is like, I'm getting paid, I'm showing up, but I'm not making a difference. Like, I'd rather be home with my kids where I can make a difference.
And that's why I wrote the book Artpreneur, is because art matters. Art gives our lives meaning, not just for the people who are making it, but for the people who are consuming it. Right now, this time, and this is always true throughout history, whenever we have these existential crises, well, two things happen. One is it lifts the veil on whatever is not working in your own life. So that's why we had the Great Resignation and so many people leaving their jobs. But the other thing is great art comes out of these times because people really need this art, because art gives people meaning. But art can't help people if nobody knows about it, which is why I'm so passionate about helping other artists learn how to market their art, whatever it is.
That's so good. And your segue there was the best I've ever had. Like,
not my first rodeo.
I am holding up Artpreneur, which is Miriam's book. And
and if you're more interested in all the banking stuff, that's chapter 2. I totally threw them under the bus.
Let's talk more about meaning. That's a sweet spot for me. That's a precious place for me. If you want to talk about my cat, you may have heard her in the background. We never edit out the cat. So
I did not hear the cat, but I would love to see the little kitty. I am like cat obsessed.
Well, she may or may not join us. My
Instagram feed are all cats now. The algorithm knows.
That's awesome.
what I like.
That's awesome. I would also like to talk about, you did self-marketing in the financial world. Now you're helping others through marketing, I'm a big fan of helping people find their voice, right? You are a lone person, and it feels so lonely in the world when you go, I have something to offer, darn it. And a lot of people feel that way, even when they're in major organizations. They feel very alone. So let's go there. Let's talk about, how do you market without being obnoxious? I mean, really, it comes down to that, right?
Yeah, well, I didn't say without. I mean, you can be obnoxious. That does work for some people. I mean, as long as that's your authentic. I am a little bit obnoxious. Like, some people find me obnoxious. So it's really about, what is your authentic voice? What is your voice? And leaning into that. And you can't be a robot like Chat GPT. You have to have an opinion, and not, there's a cat.
Here's the cat.
Oh, what's his or her name?
Her name is Osa. It's a made-up name because I was trying to figure out what the female version of bear was, because when she was a kitty, her paws looked like bear paws. So oso is bear in Spanish, and I just figured the feminine would be Osa, and I just made up the name. So there you go.
So now you're going to have to help me. What the hell was I talking about before we had cat moment? So I think I was saying something smart, but I can't remember what it was.
You were talking about being obnoxious. No.
That's right.
After that, you were talking about marketing.
No, wait, I was talking about, there's such a brouhaha right now over artificial intelligence, and especially in the art world. Is it going to displace artists? But here's the thing, and this is what I want everyone to know. You have to have a point of view, no matter what it is that you're doing. And artificial intelligence does not have a point of view. How your voice stands out is by having that point of view. Now, some people may find your point of view obnoxious. That's the way it is. If you are doing it right, people are going to love you, and people are going to hate you, but there's no money in the middle. And you can't be afraid of turning people off. If you look across all industries, politics, art, business, gurus, blah, 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 the list goes on and on. They have lovers and they have haters, and they have a strong point of view. And that's the thing that's going to matter, is your voice.
Love that. Love that. Keep going. Just like, I love that.
Keep
I got nothing. It's like, that's the.
So I had
if you see me looking down, I'm taking notes. And that, it's like, that's the thing. GPT doesn't have a kind of polarizing point of view.
No, not even a polarizing. You can't even ask it if hamburgers are better than hot dogs and see what happens. It will describe a hamburger perfectly, and it will describe a hot dog, and it will tell you as artificial intelligence. It's not a sentient being. It does not have a preference.
It doesn't have an opinion.
Can't tell you which is better, right? Does not have an opinion. And all good art has a point of view.
Yes.
And if you look at music, this is where we really can see it. Like, it has a point of view, and it usually pushes up against what came before it. So when did you have Nirvana? Right after, there was like disco, then there was grunge. I'm not going to do this exactly in order, but every time you look at music and what comes next, it's always going to be a contrast to what came before it. So you had cock rock, then you had Alanis Morissette come in. So you have, these empowering women come in. So everything is always going to push up against, and you see that in visual art as well. So you had the abstract expressionists had their moment, and then there was pop art. So things are always in contrast of what came before.
I think the whole point of opinion is huge. Point of view, point of opinion. And that you're right, it doesn't have to be polarizing. It just needs to make you feel something. For me, that's actually, I take that into museums. Like, do I feel anything? And there's some exhibits where it's like, I got nothing. And there are others, it's like, wow, I just don't like it. I don't know why. And so I'll lean in. What is it about this art that I actually don't particularly like? And then there are other things, it's like, wow, I'm drawn. I love that. I don't know why. That's like, that makes me happy. That's art, when you feel something, right? Music, visual arts, that's and marketing, right? Putting yourself out there.
And this podcast. I mean, like, how boring would it be if, like, I came in here and I just agreed with everything you said? Like,
so true. Oh, it is one of the reasons. Like, I have people from just all kinds of people. I've had cops, and I've had I've had bank presidents. I've had, and now I get you, and it's awesome. So, I'm
making faces for the YouTube watchers right now. The podcast listeners aren't getting the full benefit of my dramatics.
Describe your faces. Here's the thing. Let's say I'm in a job job. I'm fine. I'm content. But I know there's more. I am aching for a life that's bigger. And I want to just have my voice. Maybe I want to write poetry. Maybe I want to do painting. Maybe I want to finally write that song that's been inside of me. How do I let people know that that's a thing?
So what's stopping you?
Right.
In your hypothetical situation.
Yeah, no, that's the.
So here's the thing.
Yeah.
Anytime that we're going to do something different, uncomfortable, putting ourselves out there in a way that makes us feel the least bit vulnerable, because it's whatever it is, whether it's something dramatic like you're quitting a job, or something less dramatic like you're going to put your poem out on social media, let's say. So anytime your brain senses any kind of discomfort, it goes immediately to fear. Why is that? Because our brains have evolved for survival, not goal achievement. So what happens? We have this idea we want to do something, but it makes us feel uncomfortable. We go into fear mode, and our brains will come up with all kinds of reasons why this is a terrible idea. And the smarter you are and the more creative you are, the better you'll be at coming up with these bullshit stories about why you shouldn't do that thing. Now, what happens next? so you have all these stories floating in your mind about why this won't work. So people are going to react in one or two ways. And if this is you, this is everybody, this is because you're human. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken. So you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to procrastinate, like you want to find out all the steps. You're going to take all the courses because you can't fail. If you do all the research, you go into those rabbit holes of research. Problem with that is now you come up with more uncomfortable things you need to do, which just comes up with more reasons why that won't work. Or you get contrasting advice, so now you really don't know what to do. Or you're just so confused by your own stories and you just indulge in that. So it ends up either way, you're indulging in confusion and overwhelm, and you end up not doing that beautiful thing.
Love this. This is my territory. So I love this so much. The whole idea of procrastinate, that's a great term. Confusion and overwhelm. I want to dive in and just define what the fear is. Most people are most afraid of abandonment, being alone, being outcast. And so, if I put something out there and it's not good enough, people aren't going to like me. And that presupposes that you're going to let somebody else tell you what's good enough and what's not. If you've created it, it's good enough. I just want to read back this quote because it is so good. Our brains have evolved for survival, not goal achievement. It's so good that if you realize that survival means not being outcast, right? That being part of the group, and being part of the group sometimes means limiting your shine, dimming that light inside of you.
Yeah. And let me just tie this back into a pretty bow to what we said before. Yeah. So what happens is that's what leads people to start people pleasing with their voice, with their message, with their art, with their marketing, because they don't want to come across as obnoxious because they are afraid of being, ousted by the tribe. So when you go into this mediocrity, it's so boring. And nobody wants to listen to that. Like I said, you got to have lovers and haters. There's no money in the middle. So you stop people pleasing. You got to have a point of view. You got to share what that is.
So strong. So strong. Stop people pleasing. It's okay not to feel safe, because eventually you'll feel safe with yourself. And I think that's the key, is eventually your voice becomes that safe place for you. And you start to gather the people around you that go, that makes sense. I like that. Right. That's awesome.
And then what happened to me, and what I imagine happened to a lot of other people during the whole Great Resignation, is that the fears of staying the same became greater than the fears of changing. Nice. Agreed. So there's tigers and bears outside of my cave, but there were snakes in that cave.
Yeah.
The ones we talked about earlier on the trading floor. So there were plenty of snakes in there, especially for a young woman in 1994, whatever it was that I was working. So I'd imagine still today.
So describe what you do today, right? What is it that you do with people? You're obviously a talented artist. I mean, look around you. That's like when I was talking about the stuff that makes me go, and the stuff that makes me go, ew, and the stuff that makes me happy, like the things that I can see around you, I'm assuming you created them.
Yeah.
They make me happy. I like it.
So just to clarify, I did support myself with my artwork for 20 years, and I only added on the podcast and the coaching a couple of years ago. So just prior to the pandemic, I started the Inspiration Place podcast. And shortly after that, the Artist Incubator Coaching Program. And during the pandemic, I went full in on really helping artists, because there were so many artists who were depending on the in-person events, and they didn't have an email list, and the bottom fell out from under them. So those artists really needed my help.
That's great. And that's what you're doing now, is helping.
That's right. That's right. But it's built on this foundation of 20 years experience.
Yeah. Were you? How did you get your art out there? How did you? Because I mean, New York is not a small place, and it's there happen to be just a few artists out there that want to be seen, noticed, and acknowledged, and you're not new to it. Obviously, you've been doing it a couple of decades. So, how did you get yourself known as?
Yeah. So when I first quit my job for good, I still didn't believe I could make a living as an artist. And I actually took a job as a Pilates instructor because I don't know, maybe I thought that was, I don't know why I did that. But when I was working at the gym, they taught me how to market because their business model depends on upsells and personal training packages. And when I started to get these skills, that's when I said to myself, oh, I can use these same skills for selling my portraits. And that's what I was doing then, was I was not like the art you see behind me, but realistic portraiture. So the first thing I did was I moved the painting of my son into the foyer so that when all the parents came to pick up the play dates, they would see it. I mean, it was guerrilla marketing. You know, hey, somebody, their commission was done and they're like, okay, can I pick it up? I was like, oh, no, I have blah, 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 something. Let me meet you at pickup. Why? Because that's where all the parents are. So now everyone else can see that commission as well. So, I mean, these were things I was doing over and over again, really putting myself in that room, in the place, just like I did when I was working on Wall Street, putting myself in the place where my customers were and putting myself out there. And maybe it was a little bit obnoxious. I don't know.
But that's the whole thing is just to challenge obnoxiousness, which you did when I first brought it up. It's like, if you're not obnoxious, if you're not playing outside of safe, you're just going to be bland.
Right. Stop being afraid of bothering people. It's not bothering people. Like people were glad that I was putting this out there. They didn't, they already gave a set of golf clubs to their husband last year. What are they going to give them now? That's
so great. It is so great. A rock just fell off my desk. So that's what that's what the snapping sound was.
I thought it was the energy of like how good this was. Like
it's
like
so
the vibration that I moved rocks.
You did. It was
like
awesome.
I bend spoons. I move rocks.
That's right. With me today, Yuri Geller. That's awesome. I am so appreciative of this. The whole idea of I actually. When I'm working with executives and just people who want to make any difference in their lives, one of the questions I ask is, do you know what happens if you don't step out of your comfort zone? And the answer is absolutely nothing. Well,
or you get eaten by the snake. That's
or
what
you get eaten by the snake.
Right?
Yeah, right.
There is a risk of staying the same.
Yeah, atrophy, actually. Like
that's right.
Staying the same means you're actually sliding backwards because the world doesn't stay the same.
That's right.
And so you must just appreciate yourself enough to get in the room with the people that could also appreciate what you have to offer. Everything about this is so good. If you see me looking down, it's because I have notes in front of me that I've been taking. Talk a little bit about the book. We talked about the Inspiration Place podcast. Talk a little bit about your coaching. Talk about the Inspiration Place podcast, and definitely talk about Artpreneur.
Okay, so at its core,
this is new. Yes.
Yeah, it came out February of this year, 2023.
Yeah.
Listening, this is obviously going viral on YouTube, and people are
viral because look at who we are.
That's right. Damn it. We're not allowed to curse on YouTube, right?
I don't know.
Not I had somebody 3 minutes.
I had somebody
beat me out. Okay. So Yes. So this Artpreneur at its core is a self-development book in disguise as a business book for creatives. So all that mindset stuff I talk about, but it is very practical. So don't be fooled. I talk, with it has the fundamentals that are for every business: production, pricing, promotion, productivity, and I left one out: prospecting. That's probably the most important one. So I go through all 5 of them. Why you can't rely on social media anymore. I mean, it's basically like Thelma and Louise about to drive off a cliff. I don't know if anyone's going to take their pedal off that gas. And so there are some very practical things in there. If you want to get a taste of it and see if it's for you, chapter 1 is absolutely free. Go to schulmanart.com/believe, and it will be in the show notes now because I said so. That's my magic trick of the day. If you like what you heard today, these are the kinds of things I talk about on my podcast. So the inspiration place is marketing and mindset. And I also bring people in from all different industries. And I talk about why it's important for creatives, because we're tired of listening to people talk about the weight loss program and how you should have a cheat sheet to build your email list. So it goes beyond that.
Nice. And it will be in the show notes. Obviously, it's why I asked. So I just want to make sure that if you're listening and not actually looking at the show notes, you get that it's SCHULMAN art.com/believe.
Believe. Yeah. And if you want to skip the freebie and just go to artpreneurbook.com, and there's some extra goodies for people who order through there.
And I'm going to hold it up. Artpreneurbook.com. What were you hoping I would ask you? What did I miss in terms of our conversation? What would you love for the audience to know? Like all of that wrapped together as a thing.
Such a good question. Well, I would love to end with this. We're talking about getting started, about that being able to see through those stories that we're making up and seeing that they're not all facts. These are stories we're telling ourselves that aren't helpful. But the thing is like how to keep going. And that's why I want to end with for your listeners, that you need to keep marching forward, not marching in place, one foot in front of the other, and don't blame your boots. What do I mean by don't blame your boots? Don't blame the circumstances. Keep taking inspired action and putting one foot in front of the other, and you will see results.
That is like a mic drop moment. Really good. Miriam, thank you. One more time, what's the easiest, because we have like 3 different places for people to find you. Okay. What's the easiest way for people to get to know you?
Okay. Whether you're listening or watching, I'm on both of those places. Find the inspiration place. I'm on YouTube. I'm on any podcast app that you're listening to Wayne and I right now. The inspiration place, easiest thing. Just search for that. I'd love to have you listen. And then
I would love to have our audience listen to you as well. You're inspiring, thought-provoking, and creative, and all of that mixed together. So good. So good. Thank you. Yeah, you got me through my sleep deprivation moments. I had a really late flight. Just for context, because I'm a big fan of taking care of yourself and your body, and getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep. And last night I just didn't. So late night flights, not recommended. Miriam, thank you for being here. Miriam Schulman has been my guest. Thank you. Appreciate you. This is One Sharp Sword, cutting through to what matters most. I'm your host, Dr. P, Dr. Wayne Pernell, the Exponential Success Coach. We'll see you here again next time. Thank you.